Okay, just before we crack into today's video, let me explain how you can help us. More and more Kiwis are waking up to the fact that New Zealand is in big trouble right now. So how can we turn this country around? The answer is through education. What does that mean? Well, it means exposing more and more people to our videos. It's as simple as that. Just click on the subscribe button on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and you'll be subscribed. What happens then? Well, when you subscribe, YouTube sends our videos out to more Kiwis. That's how it works. Subscribing is free. You'll never be charged anything. It's just that simple. So please do it and then enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you very much for watching. Just by subscribing, you can play a big part in the solution to fixing New Zealand. Well done, you. Well, hi, you beautiful New Zealanders. Today's video is about how Erica Stanford, National Party Minister of Education, lied to Mike Hosking. So what's in the box today? In this video, I show that what National Party Education Minister Erica Stanford said in the Select Committee hearing when being quizzed about her Education Amendment Bill. It's very revealing. Number two, I show how the coalition agreement between New Zealand First and National was shattered by Stanford. Number three, I show the wording of Stanford's Education Amendment Act and why it's so dangerous. Number four, I show how Stanford lied to Mike Hosking in a recent interview. So let's watch this together. First up, let's watch what Stanford said at a Select Committee hearing where her bill was being scrutinised by other MPs.
Did you seek any advice on the impact of devaluing Te Tiriti through this legislation?
Well, I disagree with the assertion in your question. It's not being devalued at all. It's still there. It's still a crucial contributing factor to achieving student outcomes and student achievement. So, and I think the one thing that I'm proud of, though, in some of the changes we made in Section 127 was reordering some of those. If you look down to Section 127 2E, making sure that achieving equitable outcomes for Māori students was placed at the very top of giving effect to the Treaty of Waitangi, and that is so important. If you want to honour the treaty, making sure that there are equitable outcomes for tamariki Māori is crucial. That's why we're doing all of the things that we're doing in our education reform package. That's why structured literacy is compulsory. That's why we're doing structured maths. That's why we've created every single resource in Te Reo Māori as well, because we're supporting a bilingual education system. If we're going to honour the treaty, we need to make sure there are equitable outcomes for Māori students, and I think we're doing more than any government in a very long time to achieve that.
Yeah, but so did you speak to any iwi or Māori education providers devaluing Te Tiriti in this legislation?
Well, as I've already said, we're not devaluing. Well, you might think that, but I wholeheartedly disagree.
Right. So what was the response of...
We've had a response on that. From
I have a Māori education group that sit around me, and I also talk to Kura Kaupapa regularly, na kura a iwi tūranganui, te Matakahoki regularly. I also talk to my ministerial advisory group, my Māori advisory group, who have seen all of these changes. They agree with me when I say that getting equitable and equal outcomes for Māori students, they don't believe it's being...
Sorry, guys. Can we just let the minister finish and then I'll give you the next up?
She's not answering the question.
Well, I can't help that, but what I can do is make sure you get the opportunity to ask questions.
I have a Māori advisory group. They've been through this and they know that one of my top priorities is achieving equitable and equal outcomes for tamariki Māori, and they're helping me on our work program. And by reordering this and making sure equitable outcomes are at the very top to achieve, or making sure that we're giving effect to the treaty, the Te Tiriti, they're all on board with.
Okay, so that raises a whole lot of questions for me. For a start off, there's 160 cultures in this country. Why doesn't she have a Filipino little advisory group around her? What about the South Africans and their families? What about the Argentinians? What about the Asians and the Japanese and the Chinese and the all the other cultural groups? Why isn't she conferring with them? She doesn't say she is. It's only Maori. Well, why is that? That's wrong. They're all taxpayers, all these other cultural groups. How come they're not being included in the discussion about what's best for the education of their children? But let's keep going. So what Stanford said at Select Committee, the following is what Erica actually said in the video you've just watched. She said, one thing that I'm proud of, though, in some of the changes we made in Section 128 was reordering some of those, so she's put Maori to the top. If you look down at Section 127E, making sure that achieving equitable outcomes for Maori students was placed at the very top of giving effect to Treaty of Waitangi. There's a lot of questions I have about that. Number three, I mean that it is so important if you want to honour the treaty, making sure that there are equitable outcomes for Tamariki is crucial. There's massive questions around that. Number 4, that's why we're doing all the things that we're doing in our education reform package. Oh my goodness. Number 5, that's why we created every single resource in Maori as well, because we're supporting a bilingual education system if we're going to honour the treaty. Oh my goodness. Then she says, I have a Maori education group that sit around me. We've just talked about that. So what are we to make of this? Well, she says if you look down at section 127.2e, making sure that achieving equitable outcomes for Maori students was placed at the very top of giving effect to the Treaty of Waitangi. What does she mean, achieving equitable outcomes for Maori students? What does that mean? She means that Maori will achieve the same academic results as the best students in the class. This is impossible. Why? Well, because so-called achievement is dependent on so many variables that are outside of the teacher's control. For example, here we go, the home life of the child. Are the parents reading to their children, modelling reading, helping them with their homework, teaching them how to do maths, reading and writing at home? Is the home filled with books, puzzles and educational games? Is the home stable and loving? Is the child eating wholesome food 3 times a day? Do the parents provide school lunch for their child? Is the child getting long quality sleep with minimum time watching TV? Do mum and dad have a happy, loving relationship? Stability at home, you know, is huge for children helping academic achievement. Do the parents show their children that they, the parents, are keen to grow and learn? In other words, are the parents good role models? Do they work? Do they save? Do they invest? And so on? Are they showing that they're eager to learn themselves? Is the home environment orderly, clean and tidy? Every one of these factors helps a child achieve well at school. In combination, all these factors and more contribute to a child's achievement. So what am I saying? So when Erica says that, what she just said, really what she is doing is asking teachers to be responsible for achieving variables which are completely out of their control. Teachers have little or no influence on controlling the quality of home life of the children in their classes. So I've just listed all the variables. See how silly this is? Then there's IQ. People are born with different IQ levels. IQ is fixed at birth. It cannot be changed. So is asking teachers to get low IQ children to achieve the same as high IQ children realistic? No, it's not. It's totally stupid. In fact, it's ridiculous. So ridiculous, in fact, that I began to question Erica's own intelligence. I was thinking, she can't believe this, surely. This is why, you know what, this was one of the reasons that Richard Prebble resigned from the Waitangi Tribunal, because the Waitangi Tribunal was trying to tell New Zealanders, or the whole of the country, that they wanted equitable economic outcomes for Maori. And Richard Prebble said, this is impossible. You just can't get equitable outcomes because people are so different. So listen to what Richard Prebble says about this whole issue of equity versus equality. It's so interesting. And you know what? Erica Stanford just hasn't got it.
That's actually impossible.
Yes, I know.
You can have a Maori Party government and every MP is a Maori Party MP. They still couldn't make everyone economically equal. I mean, the communists went and killed millions of people trying to do it and proved that it can't be done. It's just inherent in humans. We're all different. You can give equal opportunities to people, but you can't give equal outcomes.
As I listen to her and her calls for equitable outcomes for Maori, they're so off the charts that, you know what, the TV program Chloe from Wainuiomata came to mind. There are striking similarities between Erica and Chloe. Remember the TV show? So watch.
I'm very, very impressed by these slippers. You don't see a lot of these sorts of things.
I love these. These are actually children's slippers.
Really?
But I fell in love with them. I just had to get them. You know, I was losing sleep not having them, so I had to go and get them.
So there you go. Okay, let's keep moving. Giving effect to the Treaty of Waitangi. That's what she says. So Erica then says that achieving equitable outcomes for Maori gives effect to the Treaty of Waitangi. Oh, really? Where in the treaty, Erica, is this promised or guaranteed by the British? The answer is it's not there. Nothing like it. In saying this, Erica shows herself to be completely treaty ignorant. Clearly, she has no understanding of what the treaty says or means. So what is the truth of the matter here? Article 3 of the treaty gave Maori British citizenship. What does that mean? As the British citizens, Maori were guaranteed equal opportunity, but not guaranteed equitable outcomes. So Erica is all confused about the difference between equal opportunity and equitable outcomes. She doesn't know the difference. For sure, Erica's comeback would be, oh, but Maori don't have equal opportunity. If we Maorify the classrooms, Maori feel more at home and they will do better. Well, what are we to think of that? Well, this is nonsense. That's what it is. What the research really shows, who says so? Auckland University law professor Elizabeth Rata is one person. She says rightly that there is no substantial connection between Maorifying a school environment and a lift in Maori achievement. There's no connection whatsoever. This mythical link has been used for decades to justify marinating schools in all things Maori, all in the name of lifting outcomes for Maori. But it's absolutely not true. Watch. It's BS.
There is no connection between, no substantiated connection between educational achievement and a school system that recognises the ethnic identity of children. It's claimed, it's been claimed for 30 years, but there are no longitudinal studies that support it.
Okay.
So it's a false connection.
So we've accepted as a truism, though, haven't we, that the reason that Maori students don't, well, this is the argument, the reason that Maori students don't achieve in the educational system is because it is somehow biased against their culture and ethnicity. And that this is aimed to redress that. You're saying there is no empirical evidence to suggest that.
I'm saying that there have been many advocacy studies done over these decades which make the claim, but they're very small qualitative studies where a small number of people are asked, how do you feel if you're if you have an education which recognises your culture? Well, of course, the respondents always say, oh, it would make me feel good. But real data about the link, the causal link between achievement and policies and practices that recognise ethnic identity has not been established. It's claimed, but not established. There are no international studies that show it. There are no longitudinal studies in New Zealand. And what I say in my submission is that children, almost two generations of children now, have been subjected to what I'd call as an unconscionable experiment in this idea that if you recognise ethnic identity, that will cause educational achievement. Well, it certainly doesn't seem to have.
No.
Okay, did you hear that? Well, there has been an unconscionable experiment on children in the last 3 decades, and that is that if we Maorify the classrooms and bring all things Maori into classrooms, Maori children will increase in their performance. They don't. And she says, Elizabeth Rata says, well, when you hear reports of Maori doing better, it's because they're being judged by subjects which they do, like carving or flax weaving a basket or poi dancing, or how well you do a haka, against somebody who's doing physics. And they're saying, Maori get an A in their subject area, and they're comparing somebody who does engineering and physics with somebody who makes a flax basket or a poi dance or carves a carving. See the problem we have here? So what the research really shows, so if there's no substantial connection between Maorifying a school environment and a lift in Maori achievement, why is the Minister of Education persist in doing this? It's a good question. The answer is it's grooming. Yeah? Education has been weaponized by Stanford and her woke bureaucrats, just like the Labour Party, to groom our children and grandchildren so that when they're old enough to vote, they will vote for all things Maori. And what's the point of that? So that the Maori can be voted into power by the children they have groomed for 3 decades to vote for them. You see that? You know what? This is not conspiratorial. This is what they're planning. This is what the whole big shift at the moment is to getting people onto the Maori roll. They're trying to get more Maori seats. It's all about power. And it's about who can get power in Parliament. That's it. So this is the reality. But there are other issues here, like what? Well, like I've said, there's 160 cultures in our country. Why is one culture being singled out? That's Maori, and its culture and language chosen above all others. Are the people of all other cultures also taxpayers? Have they also got children at school? Don't they deserve in a democracy to be treated equally? The answer is, of course they do. Yes, they do. So what's going on here? like I say, it's only grooming. It's not only grooming, but it's also racism and apartheid. That one group is being elevated. And watch the agreement between National and New Zealand First. They promised to not further anything to do with this sort of thing, but it's rampant now, and Stanford's pushing it. As I said, there is absolutely nothing in the treaty to justify what Stanford is doing. So I would challenge anyone, anywhere, to prove otherwise, that all this is in the treaty. Okay, now let's move to the bill itself. Here it is. There it is. It says, Objectives of Boards in Governing Schools. Section 127 of the Education and Training Act 2020. The Act sets out school boards' primary objectives. Now, primary means top of the list. If you have a list of a to-do list, then primary means those are the 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the things that are top of list for boards who run schools. It requires school boards to ensure that. Now, the word ensure means must. It's not voluntary. It's not could be, might be, could be. It's to ensure. That's a must. Every student is to obtain the highest possible standard in education achievement, no problem. That the school is a safe place for students and staff, no problem. The school is inclusive, no problem. But the last one is the dangerous one. The school gives effect to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi, Te Tiriti, the treaty, by working to ensure that its plans, policies, and local curriculum reflect local tikanga, Mataranga Maori, and Te Ao Maori, making instruction available in Tikanga Maori and Te Reo Maori, and achieving equitable outcomes for Maori students. In other words, that's Maorifying a school. There's nothing less. It's covering every single aspect of Maori culture and Maori language, and saying you've got to give effect to this in the school. You've got to ensure that it's, look at the areas, the plans, policies, and local curriculum reflect local tikanga. So everything that goes on in a school has got to be Maorified. That's it. Well, as I say, the last bullet point is the one that's controversial. So I'm a school teacher. When I was teaching, the students would leave at 3 p.m. each day, and I would spend between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. preparing lessons for the next day. Let's say I was planning a maths lesson on the subject of, say, division, right? How am I going to incorporate Tikanga Maori, Mataranga Maori, Te Ao Maori, and Te Reo Maori into my maths lesson? The key word is ensure. As I said, it means must. So I have no choice. This is compulsory. If I'm going to obey the law, I've got to put Maori stuff into every single lesson. It's a legal requirement. So every single lesson must have all this Maori stuff injected into it. In my maths lesson on division, let's say I want to use the example of 100 divided by 20. So I'm going to have to teach all my students the Maori word for 100 and 20 and the word division and all the other words in my maths lesson on division. I have to consult with local iwi that they have anything I need to know about division. So they will want payment for advice. Then I have to research whether Mataranga Maori knowledge or Maori knowledge has anything to say about division in maths. Can you see how ridiculous this is? This is like Monty Python. It's a serious, serious problem. The Maori children in the class know English already, so there's no need to use Maori words to communicate division concepts and words in Maori. This is just an ideological claptrap. It's a complete waste of everyone's time. It's going to turn teaching into a clown show. No one will use the Maori words we learn in our maths lesson outside of school. Why? Because outside of school, virtually everyone speaks and writes nothing but English. It's the international language of the world. Students only have a limited number of hours each day. Most of this time is now going to be spent learning a redundant language which is of no use to absolutely anyone. The key question is this: has Maori language and culture helped Maori in the last 180 years? The answer is no. As we all know, Maori top the negative social statistics in every single area. So why are we forcing what we know does not work on all non-Maori children? Why are we saying you've got to do something that we know does not work and we're going to force it on you? This is like painting a house with paint that we know does not work, or baking a cake with a recipe proven to be a failure. This is the stuff of one flew over the cuckoo's nest. It's crazy. The net result of all this, the Maorification of our education system is going to drag all the non-Maori children to the bottom of the barrel. It's not going to lift Maori achievement. Elizabeth Wright has just said that. It's going to drag all non-Maori children down. Why? Too much confusion having to learn Maori words and concepts. Too much wasting time. Too much being spent on lower performing children at the expense of the average performing children and the highest performing children in a classroom. In other words, this is going to be a total disaster. Multiply this craziness over every lesson taught in every school. Just think about that for a minute. But it gets worse. Remember what Elizabeth Rada said about the value of Maorifying a school? Is there any research to show that it lifts the academic achievement of Maori? Answers, absolutely not. So why are we wasting time on Maori students, non-Maori students, and teachers? Why are we doing this? And once that time is lost, it can't be regained. It's gone forever. You can't do 10 years at school and say, I've stuffed it up, can I start again? You can't do that. And all for what? For Erica Stanford's sick, poorly thought through, ideological, social engineering experiment. Then think of the cost of producing bilingual resources. Poof! Millions of dollars of taxpayers' hard-earned cash gone up in smoke. The only people who are winning from this are the printers. A failed experiment, an education train wreck. Which brings us to the interview between Stanford and Hosking and the issue of lying.
Dip our toe into 127B gate. The interweb is awash currently with people writing to me telling me Erica Stanford is the wokest minister in the government, and under the cover of darkness she has snuck into legislation currently before Select Committee, a committee to the commitment to the treaty that entrenches it in a way we should all be alarmed about. And Erica Stanford is, of course, the Minister of Education and is with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm well indeed. You say what? Have you seen these emails, by the way? And this has become a thing this week.
Well, of course I have, Mike. I mean, this is what happens when you get a bunch of people who get all whipped up with hatred and frothing at the mouth and spouting complete and utter garbage lies. Guess what happens to politicians? You know, I get sent emails and messages and all sorts of things telling me what an awful person I am, but all based on complete and utter rubbish. Complete lies. There's not a single thing they've said that has got an ounce of truth to it.
Represents
and I apologise
one of
to the New Zealand public on their behalf.
Righto, represents one of the boldest attempts yet to entrench co-governance and identity politics in the classroom. True or not?
No. Look, is Te Reo Māori being made compulsory in the classroom? No. Is co-governance being entrenched in the education system? No. Did I put a treaty Waitangi clause in section 127? No. None of those things are correct.
Okay, there you go, straight out from Erica's mouth. Let's fact check all this. First lie is Stanford asked the rhetorical question, is Te Reo Māori being made compulsory in the classroom? The answer is, she says no. This contradicts what her bill actually says. Let's read it. There it is. The objectives of boards in governing schools. We've already read it, but let's read it again. A board's primary objectives in governing a school are to ensure, that means that they must do it, the school gives effect to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, including by working to ensure its plans, policies and local curriculum reflect local tikanga Māori, Mataranga Māori and Te Ao Māori, and taking all reasonable steps to make instruction available at tikanga Māori and Te Reo Māori. The key word here is ensure. As I said, this means must. In other words, all schools boards must make sure 1 to 3 happen in their school. So it doesn't get much clearer than that, does it, really? Come on. All things Maori are indeed being made compulsory in all schools. So Erica lied to Mike on that one. So far, from being all lies and complete rubbish, the accusation leveled against Stanford are actually true. Yeah? The second lie, Stanford's comeback is schools are independent agencies. They are little mini crown entities. They can make their own decisions about what they do. Is this true? No, it's not true. The law says school boards in New Zealand are not free to do whatever they like. While they have significant autonomy in governing their schools, their actions are bound by the law and guided by a framework of responsibilities and obligations. In other words, they have to execute what the government puts out. The Training and Education Amendment Bill No. 2, if enacted, will become a government directive. Thus, all schools will be obliged under the law to do what it says. So Stanford lied about the jurisdiction of school boards. They are not free to make up their own decisions about what they do. See? Otherwise, why have a government? Why have an education department if schools can just do whatever they want? So, you know, she's lied about that too. That's the second lie. Here's the third lie. Hosking asked, the bill represents one of the boldest attempts to entrench co-governance and identity politics into the classroom, true or not? Stanford replies no. This is the third lie. She says all this is absolute lies and absolute rubbish. There's not a scare of truth in anything. So how do we know this is a lie? Well, Elizabeth Rata's view is that the bill would embed or entrench the treaty into New Zealand schools. And if one embeds the treaty, then the flow-on is the Maorification of our schools. Take a listen to Elizabeth on this one.
Could you please explain to us, I guess in the words that we would understand, Elizabeth, what the problem is with this particular piece of legislation and why you submitted on it?
So this brings us to the third lie.
Could you please explain to us, I guess in the words that we would understand, Elizabeth, what the problem is with this particular piece of legislation and why you submitted on it?
The problem is that it not only retains the treaty in the legislation, but it really embeds it. I had thought that the coalition government was removing the treaty from all legislation except that concerned with treaty settlements. I don't like to overstate things, but when I say I was shocked, I actually mean shocked.
So there you go. Elizabeth says she was absolutely shocked by this bill. She says the bill not only retains the treaty in legislation, but really it embeds it. And yet, Erica says her bill does not embed co-governance and identity politics into the classroom. That's what she told Mike Hosking. Rata says it does. Who are you going to believe? What does the clear evidence suggest? Well, you know the answer. Erica Stanford's lying, but it gets worse. Here we go. What's most disturbing of all about this bill and Erica? What is most disturbing? Well, according to Elizabeth Rata, Erica is using the bill as a Trojan horse to infiltrate the education system with Maori religion, or more technically, belief system they call it, but it's actually Maori religion. That is to say, introducing children to Maori gods, spirits, demons, and prayers. Essentially, this is recruiting into the Maori religion. Christians would call it evangelism. It's looking for converts. Erica and her department are trying to fly under the radar with this, calling it not Maori religion, but knowledge system. See how they do it? This is done so as not to alarm parents. They just change the label. So watch.
This is what really, really concerns me, and I think it's the Trojan horse that will completely subvert the aim, the intention of educational achievement, is what's called knowledge systems. Now, I'm going to call it belief systems, but in the last few years, in educational writing, this term knowledge systems has become widespread. What it really means is belief systems. And so it's a way to insert various beliefs into the school curriculum, claiming that it's equivalent to subject-based knowledge, the knowledge that is derived from the disciplines and that's developed according to the scientific method, of open inquiry, of ongoing critique, always recognised as provisional, and so on. So it's a real distinction between belief and scientific-based knowledge. So what this bill has the potential to do, probably will do, if it goes through, is it will bring belief right into the very heart of the curriculum. And once you replace knowledge-based, scientifically authorised education curriculum with beliefs, you've lost the plot completely. You will not get educational achievement.
Correct.
So there you have it from, I would arguably say, New Zealand's greatest education expert. She's arguing it out with Erica Stanford. So is Stanford acting more like a Labour MP? Stanford then spends a lot of energy stating that treaty clauses are in all kinds of legislation, as if to say, oh, well, they're everywhere in existing legislation, so what are you worrying about? Paul Goldsmith has been charged with reviewing all the existing references, so let's just leave it to him. Or, I didn't put them in there, it's not my fault. That's what she sort of says in the rest of that interview if you listen to it with Mike Hosking. Well, what is this? It's a cop-out. What do I mean? As the Minister of Education, we all know it is well within her power to have all references to the treaty in her portfolio in education-related legislation removed. So why doesn't she do this? She doesn't want to. She's an activist. In fact, there are many media people who think she is the new Jacinda Ardern. And really, Erica would be best in the Labour Party. So watch what these ladies are saying.
Can I just ask you, like, your maiden speech in Parliament was about sustainability and how marriage is about love and not gender. Did you realise that you were a Labour MP?
It's been said before.
Yeah.
They are calling you kind of like, you know, the new Jacinda. Like, do you have the portfolio of early childhood education?
I did.
Yes,
I
you
used
did.
to, not anymore.
Okay. Is that why you had to babysit Chloe Swarbrick?
She's actually a very good friend of mine.
Oh.
Yes, we get on very well.
Look at that. There you go. There you go. And I showed a video a couple of weeks back with Erica Stanford at the gay parade, the Pride Parade in Auckland, in a little tutu and doing her thing. So she's a pretty mixed up lady, this lady. So here's a summary. The bill is ideologically driven. Number 2, there's no reputable research proving that marifying a school will lift Maori student achievement. This is a myth. Number 3, so Stanford is spending hundreds of $millions on a myth, something that doesn't work. Number 4, there is absolutely nothing in the treaty to justify creating a bilingual education system, nothing at all. In fact, if you read the Kohimarama notes of the 140 chiefs who met in Kohimarama in 1860, they all said they wanted to dump their Maori culture, their Maori language and everything Maori, and embrace British law, British language, British customs. So she is going against history here, and so are all the Maori activists. Like Luxon and Potaka, Stanford is on a personal crusade to Maorify the country. She's out of control. In her interview with Mike Hosking, there's no doubt she lied. It's well within her power to remove the ideological clauses from this bill, but she doesn't want to. In other words, she's an activist minister. She's trying to pass the buck for these clauses being there on people like Goldsmith or people who came before her, number 9. This bill will force all things Maori on all students, whether they like it or not. It's the shove it down your throat stuff. It's compulsory indoctrination. It's grooming future vote harvesting. That's what it is. Number 10, the bottom line is that this is a gigantic waste of time and money, a social engineering experiment which will cause the education achievement of 90% of the students to plummet. So if your kids are in the classrooms and schools at the moment, they're going to be neglected. They're going to be having this stuff shoved down their throats, and their performance is going to go down. Why? Well, flying under the flag of achieving equity for Maori students, teachers will be forced to expend 90% of their time and effort into the 10% of the class who are at the bottom of the barrel, and the expense of the 90% of the class who need and deserve their attention. See? You can't do this without some fallout. This bill will go down in history as a catastrophic failure by National's own Chloe of Wainuiamata. See what I'm saying? So before we go, in doing what she is doing with this bill, Erica has shattered the coalition agreement between National and New Zealand First. Here it is. It says the coalition government will work to improve outcomes for all New Zealanders and will not advance policies that seek to ascribe different rights and responsibilities to New Zealanders on the basis of their race or ancestry. Well, really, is what Erica is doing just trashing that agreement? What do you think? Is what Erica is doing a breach of this agreement or not? Let me know in the comments. So I'll put the full Mike Hosking interview in the description of this video, as well as the full Michael Laws Elizabeth Rada interview. They're fascinating. Okay, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Please pass this video on to others. We'll see you in the next video. Okay guys, that's enough for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Now we need your help with something. This is important. We have produced some great flyers and brochures which we want to get into the hands of all New Zealanders. So we need to go around the mainstream media. They're not going to help. In fact, they're making things a lot worse. So we have to go around them. And we need your help to make this happen. We can't do this without you. So what are we talking about? First, there is our business cards. They're only 3 cents each plus courier to get them to you. Then there is our latest booklet called The Psychology of Takeover, 19 strategies Maori activists are using to take over the country. It's 80 pages and packs a huge punch. So they're cheap. They're $3 and they're absolutely fantastic if you want to get a handle on what's actually happening in New Zealand. Then we have a few thousand of our original Stop Co-Governance booklets left over from my tour in 2023. Remember these? You'll remember we printed 550,000 of these. Well, these are now free because we realized that only about 1/3 of New Zealand houses got this booklet last when I did my tour, and so we want to get to the other 2/3. So if you do a few streets around where you live, that would be absolutely phenomenal, and they are free now. Then we have our MACA, that's Marine and Coastal Act brochure 2, which alert people to the loss of our beaches. You know, we're in danger of losing all the beaches around New Zealand. The text is written by Graham Adams, who's a great author. These are now free. And then we have our beautiful bumper sticker, which we've just made. And why are we doing this? Well, New Zealand's identity is under threat. We know that. First activists have and are still trying to change the name of New Zealand to Aotearoa. We don't want that. We must oppose this. This is rubbish. Where's the referendum saying that we want to change the name of the country? There was none. It was just forced on us. Second, Maori sovereignty flags are appearing more and more all over the place, and they're just treason. So we've got to get these bumper stickers out. So we've printed some awesome bumper stickers. They're $3 each, and they measure 21.5 by 6.5, so you can see how big that would be on your car. To get any of these free products, all you need to do is pay for the courier to get them to you. For the products that cost something, like the bumper stickers or the little psychology booklet, it's the cost plus the courier to get them to you. So to order any of these products, just use this email address, cards@stopcogovernance.kiwi, and we'd love to hear from you. Finally, if you want to access all the videos we've ever made, including all our most viewed and most popular videos, and have them all in one place, which is what people are asking for, then just type in this address into your browser. There it is there, https www.youtube.com/@StopCoGovernance, and you'll find it goes straight to our channel. Then what you do is save this address to your computer as a favorite. Job done. Well done. Then you've got them all in one place forever. And all the new ones that are coming in get placed into that address, so you won't miss anything. Okay, last thing, please, oh please, don't forget to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll get the latest videos straight into your inbox. You'll never miss a video, which is great. You'll link up with like-minded people all over New Zealand, and that's very, very stimulating to have meet up with all these people who think like you. You'll be telling YouTube, I like these videos, and they will respond by advertising our videos to more Kiwis for free. It's incredible what they do, but it just relies on you replying to comments and making comments and liking things and sharing things and activity. That's what it is. It's just activity on our channel. And turning New Zealand around is simply a matter of reaching more Kiwis with the truth. So just click on the subscribe button on the bottom right hand side of your screen. The little yellow arrow is showing you where it is, and you'll be subscribed. Okay, see you next time. You guys are awesome.